As many of you can tell by the title of today's video, I ran into the first ever issue with my BMW M235i. Now, you guys know that I've owned this car for a little over a year now, and fortunately, it's been an awesome car. I really haven't had any mechanical problems or just any problems with it in general. It's treated me very, very well, currently sitting at 57,000 miles. But I finally ran into one issue, and full disclaimer, this was completely my fault. Yes, we all make mistakes, we all mess up with certain things at times. This was not due to the car, it was simply a matter of user error. But I figured I would describe and share my experience with you guys just to warn anybody else that might encounter this issue or deal with it, because it could have potentially been very expensive to repair. Let's get right into it. So recently I ordered a full oil change kit off FCP Euro using Liqui-Moly 5W40, full synthetic oil along with a brand new filter and all associated gaskets. So I went ahead and was gonna get my car up on the jacks and do the oil change at home myself, which I proceeded to do. And of course, this is a very simple process. Most people know how to change oil on these cars. It's very easy, and there's like a million DIYs on YouTube with how to do it. The catch, however, was I made a mistake. And that mistake was essentially cross-threading the threads on the oil pan itself, where the oil drain plug is supposed to go back in. I over-tightened my oil drain plug. Now, this is a very, very common issue, especially with a lot of newer cars that use softer metal oil pans such as aluminum, like what is featured on this car. What ended up happening was after I let all the oil drain out of the vehicle, I proceeded to replace the oil filter with all the gaskets. When I went to go and insert the drain bolt back in, what I did not do properly was re-thread the drain plug back in completely straight. And what happened was it was at a slight angle when I put it back in, and me just thinking for whatever reason, I thought it was good to go, and so I started kind of threading it in, and then I took my wrench and I started twisting it clockwise to basically bolt the oil drain plug back into the oil pan. Now this was a major mistake, because what ended up happening was I over-tightened the oil drain plug, and on top of that, I cross-threaded the threads on the oil pan itself. I know it's a stupid mistake, and I was in disbelief that I did this. I was like, come on, Omar, like you really messed up something so simple, but it gets the best of us every now and then. We all make dumb mistakes, and this was definitely one of them, so I'm fully owning up to this. And the way that I knew I had over-tightened it was the bolt wouldn't completely tighten. And so what ends up happening is you're trying to tighten the oil drain plug, but it just keeps spinning, and there's resistance on it, but there's not enough. You can keep spinning the wrench clockwise and trying to tighten the bolt, but it will never fully tighten down. And that's how you know it just keeps kind of spinning, and really you're only making the problem worse by continuing to do that. You're just digging up those threads even worse. And that's kind of what I did. Fortunately, I realized that something was up, and so I did stop early on enough to where I didn't do a severe damage to the oil pan threads itself. And I realized, I was like, man, I don't think that's good. But I continued anyway with the oil change install. I was like, you know what, whatever. I haven't really encountered this before, so I started pouring oil into the engine. Finished everything off, put the full 7+ quarts in, put the oil cap on, started the car, everything was good to go. The next day, as I backed out my car out of the garage, I ended up having to step out of the car because I wanted to check something in my garage, and lo and behold, I come to a puddle of oil sitting on my garage floor after backing the car out, and my stomach kind of sank, and I was like, you're kidding me, like, and I was just thinking, like, how is the oil leaking? Like, what is this? And I just thought back to the oil drain bolt and how it kept spinning. And so I ended up looking it up and resorting to the forums. What's the issue? And that's when I found out, hey, I over-tightened this, and the only solution that seems to be the case is replacing the entire oil pan, which on this car costs like over $800, not even to factor in the cost of labor. And I was just like, shit, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I don't want to deal with this. So I started looking up some alternative solutions, and I ended up finding retapping kits, which basically create new threads if you do cross-thread something on a vehicle for whatever reason. Fortunately, I was able to take it to a local mechanic of mine that I am fairly familiar with, and he was able to basically get the bolt out, because the bolt wouldn't come out either. If you tried to spin it counterclockwise or clockwise, what ended up happening was the bolt was just spinning and it was stuck in there. So he was able to basically get the bolt out by getting like a flathead, prying it in between the bolt and the pan, as well as using an impact gun and essentially getting it out. Let the oil drained out. We examined the threads. I'll show up an image. Right now you can see how cross-threaded it was essentially. And he basically retapped new threads using a retapping kit into the pan. Now, this is something that only a skilled person should do because it is somewhat risky. Obviously, you are shaving little bits of metal off the oil pan, and you want to make sure that that does not end up into the oil pan itself on the inside. He took extreme caution to make sure that that didn't occur by basically cleaning out the threads as soon as they were tapped in again, vacuuming out the inside as well as the exterior bits, and just to make sure that everything was good to go. And then with the retap threads, he actually used an oversized drain plug. Now, the issue with the OEM drain bolt is that the threads stop a little bit early on. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring this up to the camera. Hopefully it will focus in. And you can see that there is a point to where the threads do stop. So once you hit that point, you know, that's essentially, you don't wanna tighten it beyond that thread, because what happens is there is no thread remaining, and that makes it very easy to over tighten. And when you over tighten, the problem is that the metal on the oil pan is very soft because it's aluminum, and you're very prone to cross threading those threads and whatnot. So with this new kit, he basically retapped the threads, and then using that oversized drain plug, those threads do not end until they hit the very top of the bolt. And so this essentially makes it over tighten proof. So it's much harder to over tighten the oil pan, but nevertheless, again, you always want to follow the correct torque spec with all these bolts, because learn from my lesson, if you're not careful, you can definitely over tighten something, and that is going to cause you a lot of headache. Fortunately for me, it was a $50 fix. The oil is fresh in the car, there's no more leaking, and the plug is good to go. I really haven't had any issues or anything now since. And again, this was my fault. It was user error. Before everybody goes and dislikes, oh, this was your fault. Yes, I'm owning up to it. This was my fault. With all that being said, I thought I would share this experience with you guys just as a forewarning. I'm sure many of you probably already know what this issue is, but this was something that I honestly had no idea was possible. And so it was a good learning experience for me. I definitely took a lot away from it. And fortunately, everything is good to go. The car runs amazing. Now I'm just gonna be installing my intercooler as well as some brake pads, brake fluid, and we're gonna get this car back on the road because it's just, I mean, it drives amazing already, but there are a couple other things that I would like to do just to make it that much more perfect. So be sure to give me a thumbs up on this video as well as subscribe if you did enjoy what you saw. Check out some of my other videos on the channel. Welcome to Simply Car Things if you are new. With all that being said, I'll catch you all in the next one. Thank you guys.